So all of the lining elements will pretty much follow the same structure, and let's start first with the spread, and I'll go ahead and press R, and let's go up and let's look for our spread. And from here let's grab a shuffle node and let's start separating these layers up. And let's first start with our GI, and let's create a node here and maybe one here. Alright, so this is our GI. Let's merge this into our mainstream and plug this here. And this should be a plus operation. And let's create some space here for our grading nodes. And I can pretty much copy this, so I'll grab all of these nodes, press Alt-C, bring this over, merge this here. And this shuffle will point to our render, and maybe just make this look a little bit nicer. And this will be our volume. And then finally I will copy all of these again. And let's go ahead and place this here. And this will point to our render and do another node here. And this will be finally our emission. Okay, so let's preview these one by one. So this will be our GI. This is the global illumination for the ground. This will be the reflection on the smoke itself, and then finally the geometry itself, which is our emission. Alright, and all of these should be merged into our main stream by using an operation that's plus. Okay, so let's preview all of these, and here we have it. Let's first start with our emission and drop down a grade node. And if I drop down the grade here, let's maybe just preview this. If I drop down the grade, we can see that we get rid of all of this whiteness and we can start reintroducing a little bit of this color. So if let's maybe set this back to 1, and if I select a few pixels here by holding Ctrl and Shift, we can see that we are working with values way over 1, and so 9, 16 and 23. And if we remember, in our material we were using an emission scale of 25, which is roughly this value over here. So this goes all the way up to almost a value of 25. And since the color that's past a value of 1 keeps adding on top of each other, these colors keep adding up until they reach this really wide value. So if I decrease the colors, if I decrease the values of these pixels, we can see now that we are working with values closer to 1. So as I decrease these and go closer to 1, we start to get our original colors that we set up for the geometry. Okay, and maybe we can also play around with the gamma a little bit to have a little bit more color. And I will leave this as it is for now, because we will have to set up the glow layer as well, and then we will have to come back to these settings and readjust some of these. Let's maybe take a look and let's preview the final result. Okay, and maybe actually just go back to this grade and maybe just increase this a little bit so we don't have this sharp contrast with the color. Okay, we will adjust this later. Anyway, let's go to our volume controls and let's drop down a grade here, and maybe also decrease the gain a little bit for this, and maybe the gamma as well. Or maybe I'll leave the gamma as it is and just play around with the settings until you get your desired look. And maybe for this GI for the ground, we will want to, let's maybe increase the gamma and also the gain, and also just make this a little bit more blue. And maybe for our volume as well, maybe we will want to make this a little bit more blue. Okay. And another cool thing that we can do with this is we can see that this emission channel is looking pretty good, and I'm happy with how this looks in our final result. But a cool thing that we can do is if we grab this fog tint from our smoke, so this layer over here, let's grab these two layers and I will Control C, and I want to bring them over here, and let's relink them over here. So what I can do with this layer is use this as a mask for a grading node in our emission. So from here, if I drop down another grading node, so this is this layer, and I want to point to my fog over here and place this as our mask, and let's create a node. let's step inside this node and let's tell our mask to use the RGBA red channel. If I now decrease the gain and let's set this to be inverted, we can see that we are kind of using this smoke to obscure this emission channel for the lightning. So if I preview this as my final result, we can see that with this node we are kind of hiding parts of this lightning, and we can drop down a gray node from this as well, and we can play around with the gamma here. So we can maybe decrease the contrast a little bit, and we can see that with and without this node, this overall just adds a little bit more variation in the emission channel for this lightning. And we can go back to the grade and make some adjustments if necessary. So hopefully you can kind of agree with me that this looks a little bit better. So we can see that, for example, some parts over here are getting a little bit more obscured by the noise. And maybe go back to our grade, and we can further increase this contrast. And like I mentioned earlier, we will have to add the glow and readjust some of these settings. Now this probably isn't anything near to physically accurate, but just looks a little bit better to me. So I wanted to share this trick. And for the glow, we will deal with this a little bit later, but essentially the glow will be only using this emission channel as the source. So because we will be adding more elements to our mainstream, I want to shuffle this emission channel, so the result from over this node, into our mainstream, just so that later at the end of our chain we can shuffle this out and use it as a glow layer. And we will see what I mean by this in a minute. So in order to place this in our mainstream, we can drop down a shuffle node over here, and I will connect this to my merge. And then the A layer I will set to look at my emission channel. And so in here I want the input layer to be A, and I want to shuffle the RGBA channels of this A layer. So from over here I want to place this inside a new channel as our output. So from here I will drop this down and select new, and I will rename this to emission underscore spread. And I will click on this RGBA button to populate the channels and hit OK. So from over here, if I preview the result of this, we can go to our passes and we can see that there is an emission spread channel or layer, and if I click this, it's going to be just the emission of our spread lightning. Let's go back to RGBA, and from here we will do the same for the rest of the lightning layers.